The nature of investing is going to be the second lesson. And again, to start things off in a proper setting and frame of mind and philosophy and all that, Matthew 15, there is a word that is, to my knowledge, only used a couple times in the whole Bible, korban. It's spelled C-O-R-B-A-N in some, korban, C-O-R-B-A-N. Sometimes it's spelled also K-O-R-B-A-N. But this word, it's a Jewish word, and it basically has to do with stewardship. You have an asset, whatever it is, piece of land, farm, field. We're dealing here with finance. But you have dedicated this little project, whatever it is, to the Lord. And until the person makes the offering, they still are being a steward of that asset. But in this Matthew 15 setting, my understanding that the guy had said that this, whatever it was, asset, he had been dedicated to the Lord, dedicating it to the Lord, and not taking care of his parents, which refers back, I guess, to the book of James, which was from last lesson. And Jesus wasn't very thrilled over the splitting of hairs, shall we say, of philosophy and concepts. So that brings us then to today, our culture, our philosophy, and this is a total shift away from the religious theological points. We have conspicuous consumption and investing. Now, conspicuous consumption is the name of the game pretty much for everybody today, right now. You get a paycheck, you expect to get another paycheck 2 weeks or a month or whatever, and so you're off to the races. You're out paying your bills, spending your money, living life. Investing, however, is a concept that comes from before the time of Jesus even. And in the book of Genesis, Cain and Abel, one was a farmer and one was a hunter. And the hunting side of things, they had expectations of being able to catch more meat, whatever. And so they did not plan for the future as much as the farmers did. The farmers knew that they had to keep 10% of their grain or seeds or whatever back, squash, pumpkin seeds, whatever they were doing. And if they did not, they weren't going to be farming the next year. So you could either consume everything, which was not a very bright way to do things for a farmer, or you could save and then do work and spend time and whatever, and basically you would be investing. Well, that concept comes down to us today. And conspicuous consumption, I'm sure we all have people we know. I'm even guilty of it myself at times. I am worse than a drunken sailor when it comes to spending. And when I get done, it's like, oh dear, I am here, I don't like it, it is painful, I am in poverty. The investor, on the other hand, they are more forward-looking, and they're planning, and every day they're out there doing their thing, hoeing the weeds in their garden, shall we say, ending one investment, starting another one, whichever is better. And the The difference between these two concepts is the West from the East. I mean, they're so diametrically opposite of each other. And in the investing side, this little, what I'm going to say is attributed to Warren Buffett. Whether it is from Warren Buffett or not, I don't know. I'm not really that much of a student of Warren Buffett. I admire the guy. He has accomplished great things. But Warren Buffett says, apparently, there are 3 rules that are absolutely brutal, fundamental rules that he goes by. Number 1, you do not lose money, ever. Number 2, you do not lose money, ever. Number 3, if you don't get it, then go back and start over at rule 1. It's kind of a joke, but you will find out in this class when you start looking at charts and trends and all that, exactly what that means. There was 2 events that I am very aware of in last couple of years. One was the 9/11 situation in New York, and the other was the Brexit vote from England. Both days that those events happened, the markets went 100% crazy. Nothing was what it should be. And the professional investors, they literally just closed out all their accounts and sat back. They knew that things could royally go downhill quickly. You'd end up in the sewer pipes. They did not want to lose their investments. So, do not lose money. They got out of the market, got into a cash position, and they sat there until they were confident enough to go back into the market. In the case of 9/11, when the towers came down, it was 3 days to a week, I would guess, before things settled down. In the Brexit situation, there were some people that were getting back in the next day. One of the instructors I had for when I was trying to learn options, he never went back in the market for 3 days. And he wasn't upset about it. He just went and sat on the beach and enjoyed himself. Okay, getting your nest egg together. This is not that hard to do if you know what you're doing. For those that are in conspicuous consumption mode, it might be a little harder to do, but you can do it. If you're really dedicated to this, motivated, here in the location where we're at, we have a recycling program. If you went out and you were to collect big black trash bags, 32 gallons, if you were to collect 20 of those trash bags with recycled material, I'm talking about plastic bottles, aluminum cans, if you had 20 bags of those and went down and sold it, you would be on your way. That'd be it. Be all over for you. One-time investment. Boom, you're there. The second one that I'm going to suggest, and this is the one I've done, I'm kind of living hand to mouth, conspicuous consumption, which, you know, I spank myself over. Do not recommend I do that, and then I go do it. But knowing my personality and how I work, I went to a grocery store, and my daughter was the one that told me about this, by the way. Sometimes I think she's a little less than a great investor, and then all of a sudden she'll say something and it'll just blow me out of the water and surprise me intensely because I find out she's ahead of me. Anyway, I had gone and I thought I was buying her a gift card for Christmas one time. This is, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. And what I had really done was I had given her a prepaid Visa card. You can handle it like a gift card if you want to go through the process of registering and all that. With a gift card, the money goes into the store, you get the card, boom, you're ready to go. The account is funded. With a prepaid Visa card or the other one, MasterCard, you pay your money in, you get the documents and all that, but then you have to go through the process of doing the paperwork. And I was clueless, which was which when I did it. So I gave all this stuff to my daughter and said, have a good Christmas, or birthday, whatever it was. Well, she did her homework, she did it, and she found out that she had a bank account in Texas all of a sudden. No questions asked. They didn't care about what her credit was, whether she was a paraplegic with no income. All she knew was she had a bank account with money in it. Well, every time she would purchase something, being a bank account situation, she would make her payment, replenish for a rainy day. That was her, what do you want to call it? Emergency fund for herself. And then she would add in $5, $10, something like that. And all of a sudden, within 6 months, 9 months, because she had always made more of a deposit each month than what she had spent, she had gold-plated AAA credit rating. And when I found out about that, I was going, girl, you go. And I was very happy and very proud of her. Now, when I went this prepaid Visa card route myself to get my money up for my initial investment. And when I get to the end of this series of lessons, you will see, I will show you the spreadsheet of what that comes out to be. I'll just give you a little heads up right now, and you think I'm going to be pumping sunshine here, but I'm not. This is 4.5 years of investing, working the system, and you will be walking away with $1 million gross every year for the rest of your life, provided you keep on investing. And the stock market is not known for being a very lucrative vehicle for making a fortune, but there is going to be psychology involved with people causing the various price charts to go up and down and fluctuate around, and you'll learn how to take advantage of that. The other thing that really kicks in is the factor of time. This is not an instantaneous 3-day get-rich-quick way of doing things. That usually does not happen. There are things that do change the market very quickly. And I've mentioned 9/11 and the Brexit vote. And what happens on those quick changes, usually it's going downhill, but sometimes it goes uphill equally fast. Some event will happen, and all of a sudden, the markets just fall off a cliff. They are headed into the sewer pipes, and I mean, it's drastic. And for people that are clueless or beginners or whatever, that haven't done their homework, haven't put the protection in place, they get hurt. They get hurt bad. For the ones that where it's like the Federal Reserve Board, every time that they lower the interest rate, which hasn't been for a couple of, well, I think they've had like 8 or more steps. It's always 0.25% or some small little amount. But they keep jacking up the interest rates for the Federal Reserve rate. When they finally, someday, will hopefully lower the interest rates, I guarantee you, you will see the market explode at those times. So flash crashes is what they're called when they go downhill, and all of a sudden flash increases, I guess you'd call it, when things go beneficial for you. And another little concept that I'm going to throw out here is whatever you do for the rest of your life in investing, do not pay anybody any hard cash for their services or their products. You can always find stuff for free. This information that you're on the internet looking at right now, hello everybody, is free. There are other people that they will charge you thousands of dollars for a seminar, lock you up in a hotel for a week or a few days, and they will spoon feed you this same information. Now, do you really want to pay that? Or would you rather go for free? Everything, and I do mean everything, regarding finance, you can get for free. Even brokerage services. I'm going to give you 2 firms that, when we get there, that are free broker services. So, I'm going to start off this nature of investing with the story of an investor. Whether this is a true story or whether it's 100% fiction, I don't know. I wasn't there. However, it's a fine example of what I want to talk about. This kid, 14 years old approximately, he decided he'd read a few books and done his homework, and he knew that people were getting very wealthy. He'd read about Mr. Templeton and about Joe Kennedy and Mr. Edwards, Mr. Dow, a few other people that are luminaries in the field of finance. And so he didn't have any money. He was a kid. And so he was going to go to work, he thought. He started going around in this little town. This was before computers. And he kept asking, can I be a box boy at the grocery store? Can I push a broom in this warehouse? Can I rake your leaves? Whatever. Everybody kept telling him, nope, I'm not going to let you work here because you're too young, and I'm not going to get bit with child labor laws, citations. And this kid was very discouraged. But he kept on pumping. And one of the places he had gone to was a barber shop. All he wanted to do was just run around with a vacuum and suck up all the haircut trimmings. And he'd noticed that there was a shoe shine stand, had 2 seats, and it was sitting vacant. There was no polish equipment or anything. And there was a drawer that was obviously unused, cobwebs on it. And so he just looked at it, okay, fine, and away he went. He wanted to, be an employee. However, one night, all of a sudden, the light bulb went on. He decided that he would go back and talk to the barber again and see if he could be the laborer, and the barbershop owner would have the shoe shine equipment, or chair and all that, and it would kind of be a sharecropper situation. I work, you own, We both split the money. We're good. So he went to the barber, and it was going to be simple, just a handshake deal, he thought. Well, the barber looked at him and said, if you're here and this is a handshake deal, then I'm going to be accused of employing you, and I get child labor law ticket. Don't want to do that. Don't want to go there. But the kid was, really, how should we say, persistent. And he kept talking and talking, trying to sell the idea. Finally, to get rid of this kid, the barber said, look, I got to have some kind of document. I will lease you the chair. And the fees for that lease will be 50% of your profits. Now, go figure out how to do a lease. Come back with the document. I'll sign it. Well, this kid, it was like telling him to go climb Mount Everest. He didn't know anything about anything. So he went to the library, got a book, and read about how to do a lease. And one thing led to another, to another, to another. Got to have a date, got to have payment conditions on both sides, blah, 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 blah. You do this, I do that. And the typical lease today that everybody's familiar with is an apartment lease agreement. There's also car leasing and whatever. So he went down to, remember this is before computers, he went down to the local business stationery store where they sell all the paper for typewriters and whatever, carbon paper, which we don't have anymore. Anyway, he got a blank lease form. And all he was supposed to do was just fill in the blanks. Well, he really worked that. He hand wrote everything that he wanted. And he took it back to the barber. Here, sir, will this work? And the barber was just blown away. He never expected to see this kid again. So he did sign it. They both got their copies, and everybody was happy. The kid got his money up. By the time this guy had graduated from high school, which was, 4 or 5 years later, he was paying himself a salary out of his investment business, and he was making more money, still living at home, of course, being a minor. He was making more off of his salary from his business than his father was making working for a railroad. He kept on going. He found a college that taught investing. And remember, investing, finance, financial advising, IRS tax law, CPA, these are all separate specialties. So he knew what he wanted. He found a school, and I think it was in New Jersey. Anyway, he went and he did it and graduated 4 years later. By this time, of course, he was a millionaire, net worth of over $1 million, and he never did anything except put his degree up on the wall behind his desk, and he was in business for himself from day one of his adult career. So a little few takeaways that we can get from this. And for those of you that are watching this on the internet, you can start and stop and review whatever, because this is a golden nugget that we're going to get into on these takeaways here. 1, never give up. And I mean never. When I graduated from high school, I had a 1.4 GPA. And like I said, the only reason I graduated from high school was they didn't want me. They put me out on the street, told me to go away. Well, I knew I wasn't exactly a dummy, but I knew also that I wasn't the brightest bulb in the community. So, I kept working on it. And for those of you who feel that way, in my case, I'm going to do a little detour here now and talk about my own personal life. I was watching TV one day, which I did a lot of, and I was just sucking up information. And there was an infomercial, and it was called "Where There Is a Will, There Is an A." It was a book that came out 30 years ago, whatever, no longer published that I'm aware of. It was a relatively short-term sort of thing, infomercial, and it was a way for the author to generate funds so that he could continue his education to get his PhD in psychology. And he knew about learning methods, and so he did this TV presentation, and I was one of the people that bought his book, financed his education, and oh, it was the best thing I ever did in my life. Because, now, another little sidebar, I am, clinically speaking, ADD with just a touch of obsessive compulsive behavior. And when I found out that I had these psychological situations in my life, it was not a good day for me. Then I found out that it was the best thing that ever was told to me, because it was God's way of telling me, hey, here's your personality, this is how you think and function, run with it. And that was how I spent 3 years banging my head against a wall to figure out the methodology for this book, which you're going to benefit from. So my blessing is now your blessing, I hope. Anyway, never give up. The second point is age is not important. The idea is what is important. In this series of lessons, my sister's grandson is in his last year of middle school, and he's watching online these videos. And he doesn't know it. It's probably going to be an announcement to him, but he is well on his way to doing foreign exchange. He has already indicated to me some of his thinking. He was, I mean, all over the map as far as the details. But he was trying, and he was on his way. He didn't know it, but he was. The other person that's watching this, a little girl in Southern California, she's about 10 years old, and oh, she is smart. Another girl, freshman in high school, she's up in the Riverside, California area, and she is a 4.0 gold-plated genius as far as I'm concerned. She's also watching. So these are examples of where age is not important. Anybody that has a desire and wants to find this stuff, they're going to find it. Okay, knowledge. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a brain surgeon. You don't have to be a PhD, and you can find this information here. So knowledge can be gained. One of the major requirements for this is that you must be disciplined right from the get-go. I mean, 0 square on your checkerboard. You have to decide, I'm not going to mess around, I'm going to do this. And for me, that tied in with the financial, investment part the money that I had put into that visa situation. If I put my money in, I didn't want to blow it. I didn't want to have some sucker come up to me, hi buddy, I'm so glad that you blew it. I'm richer. I didn't want that to happen. So, yeah, knowledge can be gained. You got to be disciplined. And part of that discipline, there's a aphorism: plan your work and work your plan. And I just cannot stress that enough. One of the vocations that I had, I worked in a factory that made plastic sheeting for like bread bags and trash bags and that sort of thing. Believe me, we had to set those machines up. We had to have things all set out. What kind of resin we were going to use, what kind of temperatures we were going to use, what kind of speeds we were going to set the equipment to run at. And that meant shifting gears, literally, in gearboxes on the equipment. We had to, some cases, we were making saran wrap, generic saran wrap, not that proprietary name. And we had to have maybe 3 minutes between the beginning of a roll and the end of a roll. And we were making 8, 10 rolls at a pop. We had to get manpower, enough bodies in there to run that equipment. If we didn't have the bodies, we weren't going to get it done. So you got to plan your work, and then you got to go work it. Now, another factor is working with others. In investing, you could be at home, in your nightgown, in your underwear, whatever. You will never see people most of the time, and I'm talking like 95% of the time. There will be occasions, though, when you will deal with a banker, a lawyer, the IRS, your broker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you talk with these people, you could be a genius and completely have social skills that are less than wonderful. And you could be a millionaire. And all these people, if they don't perceive your skills, understand what's what, they're going to blow you off. So, integrity, communication, commitment, those are the 3 biggies. Then there's collaboration, cooperation, whatever. And if you have issues in those areas, then this might be time for you to consider this a wake-up call, for you to start asking some questions from people that you feel comfortable with, like a pastor or caseworker or a counselor or whoever. Again, don't pay money, but read books. You could do it. And it's not going to cost you anything to be on your way. On that example of the guy that was doing his own investing from middle school on, he did this in approximately 10 years. I don't know if I said that or not. So then we come along to next big project here, or next area, is called investing styles. And in this little area, there's basically 3 ways that people can invest. And I'm just going to throw them out, and then I'm going to talk about each one, so forth. There's day trading. There is buy and hold forever. And then there's a third category called swing trading. Now, day trading, the Securities and Exchange Commission seriously, totally, passionately hates day trading being done in stocks. And their definition of it, it's on their literature, is that you will have 5 trades each day for 5 days. That means 25 trades If you meet those conditions, they're going to hammer you hard. I have it in my head that it's $25,000 fine or investment savings account that you will give the passbook to your broker. You will get 0 interest on that, and that it's called high frequency trading. That's the fancy $25 word title for day trading according to Securities Exchange Commission. And if you get tagged as a high frequency trader, it stays with you forever, regardless of how many traders you go through, what countries you go to, you're dead meat. So everybody that is out there pumping day trading for stocks, they should be in jail and they should be fined forever, great amounts of money. Day trading is a legitimate 100% way for people to do finance if you're doing commodities, futures, that sort of thing. In those arenas, day trading is everyday occurrence. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody are pros. You're there. You're working. For beginners, don't do it. Don't even think about going there. And if the Securities Exchange Commission gets a hold of you, like I say, it's going to be a bad time for you. Okay, buy and hold. This is exactly what it says. You buy into utilities, railroads, infrastructure, school bonds, and you hold on to them forever, for the life of the instrument. And you will get your payments every quarter, every 6 months, every year, and it's like clockwork. And it is a legitimate form of investing. However, myself personally, you don't make very much, I don't think. Just a interest rate that's a little better than a savings account or money market account. Your money is secure, but it's just not quite good enough for me, personally. If it's your ball of wax, fine, enjoy. The third way is called swing trading. And when I first heard that phrase, swing trading, I thought, what in the world is that referring to? Well, imagine you go to the local circus and they have these huge, giant poles that are holding up the roof and the tents and everything, and they have the arenas and everything's good. And the circus performance starts, the elephants come out and the tigers and whatever, and then the acrobats come on the scene. And they step into the rope and another person pulls on the rope and they're elevated up the pole. And they get up to their little platforms and there's always a big guy. He launches out into the air and he's the catcher. And then usually a little lightweight woman or lightweight guy, they are the acrobat. And with great fanfare and announcement and everything, the performance begins. And these acrobats, they will launch into thin air. And they will fly and tumble and do all sorts of twists and turns and whatever. And when it's all done, they will go back and they will land where they started from. They take their bow and they go back down the rope again on that rope elevator. That process is the image that is presented in swing trading. You launch into thin air. You have no idea whether you're going to be profitable or not, whether you're going to crash and burn. When you get done, hopefully, being a pro and knowing what you're doing and practiced at it, you're going to come back to applause. You're going to be a hero. That's the image of swing trading. Now, in the trading world, there are basically three areas that we have that I would recommend you focus on. New York Stock Exchange, the American Stock Exchange, and the National Association of Securities Dealers, NASDAQ. NSX, AMX, and NASDX. X means exchange. These are the three major venues where trading is done. In the old days, and I'm talking like 1930s, 1940s, it was a huge room, Coliseum size, and there would be boards up all over the place, eventually became TVs. People would be screaming, hollering, they'd be doing all these hand signals and whatever. That image of the trading pit, as it was called, in each one of these exchanges is no longer there. Well, it's there, but it's not used much except for the oddball stuff. So if you want to go look and see this in action, you can still see it today. But the great majority of trading today in each one of these exchanges is always done on a computer. There is one person who becomes a dealer, and they have to buy into this position. It's called being a market trader, specialty trader, market maker. And IBM will have its own guy. GM, Lockheed, Boeing, every company will have their market maker. And they're usually not in the pit. They're in an office somewhere. All three of these exchanges are in New York. And the reason that they're all there is that they're all interconnected with fiber optic communication lines. And this is just how the things work. The trading that goes on in these computers is also backed up and mirrored in New Jersey, of all places. And I don't know how many other places they do this, but the great majority of trading is done 100% online. There are New York, Paris, Singapore, not Hong Kong. Well, yeah, Hong Kong's a minor one, but Tokyo, Johannesburg, and then the regional ones, Los Angeles, Chicago, Denver, Houston. The regional ones are local, and they are where new companies become listed with those regional exchanges and start doing their thing. Some of the like luggage makers, RV trailers and RV vehicles, they would probably be traded on the regional exchanges. And those companies in turn are quite frequently owned by even larger companies that then are in New York. So there's over 14,000 stocks currently on those three exchanges that I started with. One of the areas that I would discourage greatly is what's called penny stocks. There is a movie, and you can go check it out at your local library. Don't pay anything. You can get it for free. But it's called The Wolf of Wall Street.
Ah, yeah.
And that movie is the true story of a guy that went out and he was doing penny stocks. These are small, small, small companies. And they don't know where they're going to get money from to dig a mine or have a fishing boat or whatever. And so they will incorporate, they will have stock, they will issue this. And it's technically called unlisted stocks. Another euphemism for them is pink sheets, which means they're not on any exchange. And the brokers that deal in these stocks, they get an outrageous, I mean huge commission. 40%, 30%, 50%. And the salespeople, oh, they are the creme de la creme when it comes to salesmen. These people will blink with you at the same time. Their breathing is synchronized with you. Their body language is synchronized with you. They will do anything and everything to make a sale. And then they will laugh all the way to the bank. When you come down the road and you've watched their little, penny charts, you pay 5 cents for a share or something and you've invested $2,000. Oh, I got 1,000 shares or whatever it comes out to. And you watch these penny stocks fiddle around on the exchanges. All of a sudden you decide, I'm going to make a $200 profit here. That's going to be good. I'm going to laugh. So you go down, I want to sell. And the broker says, oh, by the time you get your fees and brokerage fees and you're going to end up with $10. And you go, what? It's a process of fleecing the customer. And I do not recommend that you go with penny stocks. With 14,000 shares, with 14,000 different companies, different stocks, and there's a few cases even where, like Coca-Cola, they'll have Coca-Cola A, Coca-Cola B, Coca-Cola C, preferred stock, whatever. And they'll have different return investment plans, whatever. So there's a whole lot out there, believe me. And you will learn down the road, probably another lesson, 2 lessons, 3 lessons, where to find this information. It is there. It is so simple. All you have to do is just say, what's the rising stocks this day? What's the losing stocks this day? And then you can go and you can look them up. You can see who's messed up and whether it's a tax problem or some CEO got drunk or whatever. Anyway, that is strong recommendation here for the Wolf of Wall Street movie, particularly since it's free. Now, other parts of finance. I mentioned about major exchanges offshore. There are also some very strange places that finance is done. The Bahamas, Liechtenstein. These places are the financial black holes of the universe. In the case of Liechtenstein, they're a very small country. They're sandwiched in between 2 other countries. They literally do not have the people there to answer the phones or the requests of anybody. People, governments, taxing, nothing. It's just a black hole. And there are investors that will go to one of the brokerage houses in Liechtenstein or the Bahamas. I think Panama might be one of these places too. There was a huge thing a few years ago, Panama Papers, look that up on the internet. people, they're still reeling from the Panama Papers when they came out and gave away everybody's underwear. Anyway, anything on these black holes of the universe, don't go there. Don't do that. You may decide 25 years from now that it might be in your best interest to consider one of those. Right now, they are not for person in the beginning phase of their career. Okay, communication process. Way back when, in the 1600s, we had trading that was going on in Europe. London and Paris were the two prime examples that I'm going to refer to here. And at that time, only the bankers and the lords and the super elite crowd were investing. And one of the big things that everybody wanted to have in their portfolio was gold investment. I mean, not just a certificate that says you had in a bank X number of bars. They would have physical possession of the gold. But gold went up and down pretty much like it does today. And so it became very important as to what was the quotes, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, some of the banking crowd that I'm aware of, they wanted to play the market a little bit more uniquely than the average king or lord could play it. And so the English Channel, it's 35 miles plus or minus across, and it was a separation between the two countries. Each one of these countries had their own interests, their own armies, their own blah, blah, blah. But each country also had their financial interests, and settling these financial transactions many times was just give me back X amount of gold and we'll call it good, or I'll give you so much gold. So the powers that be, they wanted information. What's the price here? What's the price there? What's the asking price, selling price? Usually they're not the same. And so to get this information from one country to the other in a very rapid, quick process, they didn't have telephones, they didn't have telegraphs, hadn't been invented yet. What they did was they had carrier pigeons. And there was a real little market for carrier pigeon and people that did pigeon type stuff. Anyway, they would literally buy gold in one country, smuggle it into the other, back and forth, to play the market or take advantage of the market. So today we have come through transatlantic cables, telegraph, even satellites are not as fast as or as secure as what's called a T1 line. These are fiber optic lines. And that is one of the reasons that all these three exchanges are in New York. They are interconnected with fiber optic lines. And believe it or not, Salt Lake City, they had a Olympic Games there one time, and they put in a huge, massive fiber optic network through Salt Lake City. Many of the people in Southern California, for instance, they route their fiber optic information from New York to Salt Lake City to Southern California. Kind of a long way as far as I'm concerned of going around the mountain, but it gets there. And the closer you are to New York, of course, the quicker your information is going to be. Now, I've gone way overboard on this mechanics of communication. It's not going to matter to us. If we get a quote once a day, that's going to be good enough. If we get 2 or 3 a day, hey, that's even better. But once a day would suffice. If you are dealing with foreign exchange or commodities, futures, then different story. You want that information within a quarter of a second. And it's computers talking to computers, program versus program. And what goes up is going to come down. What goes down probably will come up. And these fluctuations are 1/10 of a second, 2 seconds. And there is nobody fast enough to keep up with these quick little jiggles in the market, wiggles or whatever you want to call them, the fluctuations. So don't worry about it. If you're on a Wi-Fi system in northeastern Oregon, the reason I picked northeastern Oregon, I have relatives there. Wi-Fi there is just as good as Wi-Fi in Southern California, just as good as Wi-Fi in Norman, Oklahoma, or wherever Norman is. Okay, moving right along now. One of the things about the internet, it was invented, I'll just say that. And then it went to chat rooms. America Online, not even around anymore that I'm aware of. But that became then Ameritrade, which then was purchased by a bank in Canada, Toronto Dominion Bank. And so then it became TD Ameritrade. Toronto Dominion Bank is Canada. TD Ameritrade is US chartered. So things get very complicated and interconnected in the world of finance. Just be aware of all of that stuff. Okay. Next one I have here is the tools. And we've pretty much gone our time for today. So, the only thing I've suggested very strongly for you to do is go to the library and get that video for, it's a very entertaining movie, but Wolf of Wall Street. It's DiCaprio, and the lady that plays opposite him is from Australia, I think it is. Robbie is her name. Good movie. Okay, that ends second lesson, and be another one out in another week. Thank you.